Welcome to Cuba, an island where time seems to have taken an uncomfortable pause, caught between the glamour of the 1950s and the cracks of a dream that promised equality but ended up distributing scarcity. This is a country of vibrant contrasts, the cradle of classic cars that defy the laws of time, and of ginateras who redefine the art of survival. Today, we invite you to explore a Cuba that will make you laugh, reflect, and question. From the Paris of the Caribbean that dazzled the world to the endless lines to get bread. From the luxury of its dream beaches for tourists to the precariousness of the tenements where its people live. Here, Santeria competes with Catholicism, buses with donkeys, and the struggle for food with political utopias. Get ready for a journey filled with history, sharp humor, and a dose of reality that challenges any official discourse. Because in Cuba, every corner is a paradox, and every paradox is a reminder that dreams, even the grandest ones, sometimes crash against the wall of reality. Let's get started. Cuba was once a benchmark in Latin America, standing out for its modernity and technological advancements. In 1889, the country was a pioneer in having railroads, connecting important cities and facilitating trade. By 1900, it already had a telephone and electricity system that covered a large part of the island, even surpassing several European countries of the time. The capital, Havana, was known as the Paris of the Caribbean, with its vibrant cultural life, advanced infrastructure, and an educational system that attracted students from all over the continent. However, after the 1959 revolution, the course of the island changed drastically. Despite promises of equality and development, the communist system nationalized businesses, dismantled private structures, and centralized the economy. This led to an almost total dependence on the Soviet Union. And when it collapsed in the 1990s, the Cuban economy entered a deep crisis known as the Special Period. Since then, Cubans have faced decades of chronic shortages, economic restrictions, and international isolation that has slowed the nation's progress. To put it into perspective, a country that in 1950 exported sugar and tobacco worldwide now struggles to import basic food items. According to the World Bank, Cuba's per capita gross domestic product, GDP, is lower than that of many of its Caribbean neighbors, reflecting the consequences of an outdated and inflexible economic model. What was once a symbol of prosperity has become an example of stagnation. If you want to get around the island, get ready for an adventure. Illegal taxis, adapted trucks, and a lot of patience. But that's not all. There are also the famous ginateros and ginateras, who can not only act as improvised tour guides, but also offer more personalized services to tourists looking for a more authentic experience. Although, of course, all of this happens in the name of Cuban ingenuity and under the shadow of the system that has turned survival into an art. These interactions, often disguised as Caribbean hospitality, are another reminder of how the economy of the communist dream has led many to rely on informal activities to survive. Because in a society where even obtaining food is a challenge, what other option is left? Just make sure to ask the price before accepting any tour, lest communism ends up costing you more than expected. Despite its economic challenges, Cuba remains a paradise for tourism lovers. Among the most notable destinations is Old Havana, a place declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its cobblestone streets, colonial squares, and the iconic Malecon are a window to the past that enchants visitors. Another must-visit place is Varadero, known for its white sandy beaches and crystal clear waters. This is one of the main tourist destinations on the island and, interestingly, also a reminder of how the government prioritizes foreign currency over local needs. In the east of the island, Santiago de Cuba offers a rich cultural and musical heritage, as well as historical sites like the Castillo del Morro. For nature lovers, the Vinales Valley, with its mogotes and tobacco plantations, is ideal for those seeking a more rural and authentic experience. And if we're talking about natural luxury, Cayo Largo del Sur and other cays of the Cuban archipelago are perfect for disconnecting from the world, and also from the internet, as connections tend to be as limited as political freedoms. Of course, while you enjoy these places, don't forget that behind the tourist facade lies a system that prioritizes international tourism over the basic needs of its own population. But at least the views are spectacular. In Cuba, classic cars are not just a luxury, but an extension of the soul. Those 1950s Chevrolets and Fords are better maintained than the healthcare system. In many cases, these vehicles keep running thanks to ingenious fixes and mecha. Nickel adaptations, using parts from old appliances or unique inventions that defy mechanical logic. It's a true art of survival. Meanwhile, in the countryside, the picture is very different. Despite the technological advances of the modern world, in Cuba, the land is still plowed with donkeys and mules. This is not just a cultural choice, but a necessity imposed by the lack of agricultural machinery and fuel. Ironically, this forced sustainability has led some to argue that the Cuban agricultural model is green and environmentally friendly. However, for the farmers, the green that matters is the food on their tables, something that is becoming increasingly scarce. The paradox of Cuba is that while in the cities there are cars that are relics of the past, in the countryside the past never left. This combination of nostalgia and necessity is yet another reflection of Cuban ingenuity and, at the same time, of a system that forces its people to live with what they have rather than aspire to something better. The Solares are a unique architectural and social experience. Old and beautiful buildings, abandoned due to the country's economic decline, have been taken over by people who have turned them into human hives. But the problem is not just living in cramped conditions. The real drama is that these buildings are literally crumbling, causing serious accidents for those who inhabit them and for unsuspecting passers-by. Meanwhile, the government invests in building more hotels for tourists to enjoy, because, of course, the communist dream also needs foreign currency. The legendary communist ration book, that monument to egalitarianism that guarantees everyone access to almost nothing. This book allows you to buy generous amounts each month, like 2.5 kilograms of rice, half a kilogram of beans, a bit of sugar, and maybe a daily bread if you're lucky. Proteins, maybe a little chicken every few months. They've even jailed people for having 2 kilos of milk because, of course, abundance is not compatible with the system. And don't even think about looking for something more on your own. You could end up in prison for having too much food. No need to be so ambitious. Santeria is undoubtedly one of the most iconic religions in Cuba, blending African and Catholic traditions. Elegua, Chango, and Ochun are familiar names for many Cubans who seek miracles and solutions for their daily lives in them. But it is not the only belief present on the island. Catholicism also plays an important role, with the Virgin of Charity of Cobre as the patroness of Cuba and a symbol of hope for many. In recent years, Protestantism has grown significantly, with evangelical churches attracting entire communities. Additionally, there are also religious minorities such as Judaism, Islam, and even New Age spirituality groups that find a space for their practices in Cuba. In this mosaic of beliefs, perhaps we should ask any of these deities or spiritual forces for a miracle for public transportation, because waiting for a bus in Havana remains an experience close to spirituality. Insecurity in Cuba is a growing problem, marked by an increase in thefts, assaults, and crimes related to the deterioration of economic conditions. The decline in remittances, a vital source for many families, has worsened the situation, leaving many without access to essential goods. This has generated a wave of migration, with thousands seeking better opportunities outside the country. The context of this crisis lies in a system that fails to guarantee a basic quality of life. The shortage of food and medicine has led to widespread desperation. Available data shows that more than 300,000 Cubans attempted to emigrate in just the last year, many risking their lives on precarious rafts to reach the United States or other Caribbean countries. Furthermore, the economic collapse has led to an uncontrolled black market, where the prices of essential goods have skyrocketed. This creates social tensions and a constant sense of insecurity, especially in large cities like Havana, where even tourist neighborhoods are no longer immune to the rise in crime. In Cuba, waste management is a reflection of its economic collapse. The streets are cluttered with garbage due to the lack of adequate infrastructure to collect and process waste. This problem not only affects urban aesthetics, but also poses serious risks to public health, such as the proliferation of pests and diseases. On the other hand, power outages have become part of the national folklore. They are not just occasional cuts. They are scheduled interruptions that can last for hours or even days, especially in rural areas. This not only paralyzes daily life, but also affects productivity, as small businesses and local shops depend on electricity to operate. In 2022, blackouts increased in frequency due to the global energy crisis and the deterioration of power plants on the island. Reports indicate that more than 70% of the population experienced daily blackouts at some point during the year. For many Cubans, these interruptions are not just an inconvenience, but a constant reminder of a system that cannot meet their most basic needs. Cuban tobacco is world famous, with brands like Cohiba, Montecristo, and Partagas leading the list of premium products. If you are looking for high-quality tobacco with a lower risk of being scammed, it is best to buy it directly from official stores like La Casa del Habano, which are located in cities like Havana and Santiago de Cuba. These stores are regulated and offer guaranteed authenticity. However, many tourists have fallen into the trap of buying authentic cigars on the street, only to find out that they are of questionable quality or even filled with common leaves. The temptation of the special price for you, my friend, can be strong, but remember that in Cuba, nothing is as it seems.